A lot of big announcements from Mark Carney today in Hamilton, Lena and Bakari. Mark Carney kind of started off by saying that we have relied for far too long on the U.S. as our largest customer, because he says more than 90% of our steel exports go to the U.S. And so some of these changes today are aimed at targeting that as well as foreign steel. So a couple of big ones. One of the changes that Carney announced today is import quotas on other countries based on how much steel they imported last year, so in 2024. He says the government will also implement additional tariffs on steel imports from all non-U.S. countries containing steel that is melted and poured in China. So that's really targeting that foreign steel. And he also said that the government will be investing $70 million into the steel industry to try to allow these big steel companies in Canada to build more and hire more people and stop them from, having to do these major layoffs that we've seen over the last couple of months, mostly because of these tariffs from the U.S. So we heard from Prime Minister Mark Carney today talking about why the global steel industry is in such flux and how it's affecting Canada the most. Here's what he had to say.
Canada will be one of the countries most impacted by these developments. It's because we are highly exposed to this fundamental restructuring that's happening in the global steel industry. We have substantial steel exports. We have very high per capita steel use. And we have a disproportionately open import market. In fact, we have one of the most open steel markets in the world.
So many leaders within the steel industry, Bakari and Lena, including the Canadian Steel Producers Association, have been speaking out today, saying that so far this sounds like a good first step from the Canadian government to try to protect the steel industry here in Canada. We've also been hearing from political analysts, including our own Scott Reid, about today's announcement. Take a listen.
It's a twofer. And what I mean by that is it both rewards our industry here at home because they've been complaining about cheap imports of steel from places like China and Turkey. So it's going to cap the amount that can come in, and it's going to increase the tariff on that remaining amount that does come in. So that's welcome news from the industry, which is hurting right now. The other thing it does, it actually responds to a demand from Donald Trump, the Americans, because they were worried about the amount of steel that was being dumped into Canada and to other places. So it may help, or at minimum, it removes an irritant in talks with the United States.
So Mark Carney says that these changes will be implemented by the end of the month. So the Canadian government appears to be moving fast on these changes, Bakari and Lena. And also important to note, Carney did stress today that these existing arrangements with CUSMA partners, so we're talking about the U.S. and Mexico, will remain the same. So this is not going to affect any of our agreements so far with those two countries. Of course, we know that Canada and the U.S. are still in trade talks with a deadline set now for August 1st. Back to you.
Okay, Lindsay Biscaia live in our newsroom tonight. Thanks so much for this.